Welcome to a deep dive, everyone. We're going to explore a concept that's both, well, ancient and also incredibly relevant to life today.
Yeah, I'm excited to unpack this one.
We're diving into excerpts from Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay, The Oversoul. It was published in his Essays, first series back in 1841. But Emerson's ideas about a universal spirit, it still resonates today, don't you think? In our search for meaning and connection and all that.
Absolutely. Most people listening are probably familiar with the idea of like the individual soul, right? But Emerson, he challenges us to consider something even bigger, something he calls the oversoul,
Okay.
this unifying spirit that connects all of us.
Yeah.
He uses this analogy of the earth existing within the atmosphere.
Okay.
The atmosphere represents the oversoul, and we are all like individual expressions within it.
It's interesting he uses that word atmosphere. It really suggests this all-encompassing presence, almost like we're breathing it in without even realizing it.
Right.
Where do we actually see evidence of this oversoul, like in our lives? I know when I was reading the essay, I was really drawn to how Emerson uses those little aha moments as examples.
Yeah, he's pointing to those like flashes of insight.
Yeah.
Those deep connections we feel in conversation, even those sudden bursts of creativity, those moments when, as Emerson puts it, we know better than we do.
Yeah.
They hint at this connection to something much bigger than ourselves.
Right, like when you're so engrossed in a project that you completely lose track of time, or when you're having a conversation and you just feel so connected and energized afterward.
Yes,
Like those moments have a certain resonance to them, a feeling that they're tapping into something beyond our everyday awareness.
Precisely. Emerson would argue that these experiences, often fleeting and difficult to really grasp, offer us these glimpses into the nature of the oversoul.
Okay.
And these aren't just interesting events, though. Emerson really wants us to consider the larger implications, like how recognizing the oversoul can change how we live our lives.
So let's talk about that. I mean, this essay was written almost 200 years ago. So how does this concept of the oversoul, how does it apply to us today in the 21st century? What makes it relevant to someone listening right now?
Well, Emerson grapples with these timeless questions, questions about, our place in the universe, the nature of consciousness, the potential that lies within each of us.
Right.
And these are questions that, well, they continue to fascinate us, challenge us today, regardless of your background or your beliefs. The oversoul, it isn't bound by time. It's about recognizing the limitations that, honestly, that we place on ourselves and accessing this source of wisdom and inspiration that's always available.
That idea of limitations really stuck out to me, actually. When Emerson talks about the soul abolishing time and space,
Right.
that passage, I got to be honest, that kind of blew my mind. How can something abolish time and space? And what does that even mean on a practical level?
Well, Emerson argues that while we experience time in a linear way,
Yeah.
the oversoul operates beyond those limitations. He writes, "In the moment of vision, the soul is all together. Time and space are abolished." But by vision, he's not just talking about physical sight, but about a deeper kind of seeing,
I see.
a moment of really profound understanding and insight. He's suggesting that when we connect to the oversoul, we kind of transcend our ordinary perceptions of time and space. Have you ever had moments like that in your own life?
Definitely. I'm thinking about those times when I've been so engrossed in a creative project, and hours just fly by without me even noticing.
Yeah.
Or when I felt a deep sense of connection with nature, like a feeling of being part of something so much larger than myself.
Right.
It's like in those moments, time just seems to dissolve.
Exactly. Those experiences, those moments, as fleeting as they may be, they kind of suggest this whole other reality beyond our typical understanding of time and space. And this ties directly into another fascinating aspect of the oversoul, its relationship to genius.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting to me. If this oversoul is this wellspring of wisdom and inspiration, is Emerson saying that we're all a little bit divine?
Well,
What's the difference between, say, just being skilled at something and tapping into true genius? In his view, I mean...
that's a great question.
Right.
It gets at the core of what Emerson's trying to say. For him, genius isn't just about some individual talent or skill. It's about channeling something universal, something that flows through you from that larger oversoul.
So it's less about being a genius and more about aligning ourselves with this source of creativity and insight that's available to everyone.
Exactly. It's the difference between honing a personal skill and expressing something timeless and universal.
And Emerson doesn't just want us to ponder this intellectually, right? He seems pretty clear that this oversoul idea, it should fundamentally change how we live It's a call to action.
Absolutely. He offers practical guidance on how to cultivate a deeper connection to this universal spirit, how to access this wellspring of wisdom and inspiration that he's talking about.
Okay, so how do we do that? What's like step one on the Emersonian to-do list?
Well, it's less of a to-do list and more of a shift in perspective, really.
Okay.
Emerson emphasizes the importance of sincerity and authenticity in everything you do.
Hmm.
Striving to be true to yourself, not to societal expectations or anything. This
Right.
isn't about some external measure of success. It's about aligning yourself with your inner compass.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about clearing out the clutter, both mentally and physically, to create space for something more meaningful.
Precisely. And that ties into his emphasis on simplicity.
Okay.
It's not about deprivation, it's about discernment. By simplifying our lives, both materially and mentally, we kind of create space for the essential, for those things that truly nourish our souls and connect us to something bigger.
It's like clearing out the noise so you can hear the whispers of your intuition more clearly.
Exactly. And that leads us to another key aspect of connecting with the oversoul. Trusting our intuition. Emerson sees intuition as more than just a gut feeling. He describes it as the soul's whisper, a direct line to the divine wisdom of the oversoul. He wants us to cultivate this inner compass, to learn to differentiate between the ego's voice and the soul's whisper.
Which I imagine can be incredibly challenging in our modern world. Like, we're bombarded with external information and opinions constantly.
It does require a conscious effort to cultivate stillness, to cultivate silence,
Yeah.
to create space for that inner voice to emerge. Emerson suggests spending time in nature, engaging in contemplative practices, and simply paying attention to those subtle nudges that we often just ignore.
It's about slowing down, tuning in, and trusting that inner wisdom.
Exactly. And this leads to what might be Emerson's his most radical suggestion. Seeking truth for its own sake.
Okay.
Not for personal gain, social approval, or to win an argument, but because the pursuit of understanding is intrinsically valuable.
It's about approaching knowledge with a sense of wonder and humility, recognizing that the more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know.
Precisely. It's about embracing lifelong learning, always being open to new perspectives, and recognizing that true understanding requires this constant questioning and exploration.
That really resonates with me. There's a joy in discovery that transcends any material reward.
Absolutely.
This isn't just about abstract philosophy, is it? Emerson's writing, especially in The Oversoul, it's so poetic and passionate. He uses such an evocative language, almost like he's trying to make us feel the truth of these ideas.
You've hit on something crucial about Emerson's approach. He wasn't just a philosopher, he was a poet at heart,
Yeah.
a transcendentalist. He's not content to merely lay out his ideas logically. He wants us to feel the truth of them in our souls.
Right.
And his writing, it reflects that. He uses evocative language, metaphors, and even a touch of humor at times to drive his point home.
He certainly doesn't shy away from making these bold pronouncements.
Right.
You can't read Emerson passively. He forces you to confront these ideas head on, which is what makes him so compelling even today.
Exactly. And it's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. It's like we're engaging in a conversation with Emerson himself, even though he's been gone for centuries.
It really is like he's speaking across time, challenging us to think differently about ourselves and the world around us.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, there's this one line towards the end of the essay that really stuck with me. The soul will not have us read any other cipher than that of cause and effect. It's such a simple statement, but it feels incredibly relevant to our lives today, even though he was writing in a completely different time.
That's one of the most powerful lines in the essay. It speaks to the idea that we're not just passive recipients of fate. We are active participants in shaping our own realities.
It's not just about tapping into this universal energy, but about recognizing the responsibility that comes with it.
Exactly.
Our thoughts, our words, our actions, they all have consequences.
Precisely. Emerson's philosophy, it isn't about escaping into some ethereal realm. It's about living a more conscious and intentional life right here, right now. It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of everything and acting accordingly.
So, as we move further into our exploration of the Oversoul, I'm curious to see how these ideas of personal responsibility and interconnectedness, how they continue to unfold. Where do we go from here?
That's a great question, and it leads us to one of the most crucial aspects of Emerson's philosophy. Action isn't just a consequence of connection to the Oversoul.
Right.
It's a vital pathway to that connection.
I see.
He's asking us to consider how our choices, both large and small, really reflect this understanding of interconnectedness.
So it's not enough to just like intellectually grasp these ideas. We have to actually embody them in our daily lives.
Exactly. Emerson challenges us to live in a way that reflects this awareness, to move through the world with intention and purpose. He says every man is a divinity in disguise, a god playing the fool. He's urging us to shed those disguises and step into our full potential.
Okay, that's a powerful image, and it speaks to that innate potential we were discussing earlier.
Right.
But how do we even begin to shed those disguises? What are some practical steps we can take to kind of like align ourselves with the oversoul in a meaningful way?
Well, Emerson offers several pathways.
Okay.
Remember his emphasis on sincerity.
Yeah.
That's not just about being honest with others, it's about being honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
He writes, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." This requires self-reflection, questioning our motivations, and ensuring our actions are really aligned with our values.
It's about living authentically, even when it's challenging or unconventional.
Precisely. And this ties into his emphasis on simplicity.
Okay.
It's not about deprivation, but discernment.
Okay.
By simplifying our lives, both materially and mentally, we create space for the essential, for those things that truly nourish our souls and connect us to something larger.
It's like clearing out the noise so you can hear the whispers of your intuition more clearly.
Exactly. And that leads us to another key aspect of connecting with the oversoul, trusting our intuition. Emerson sees intuition as more than just a gut feeling. He describes it as the soul's whisper,
I see.
a direct line to the divine wisdom of the oversoul. He urges us to cultivate this inner compass, to learn to differentiate between like the ego's voice and the soul's whisper.
Which I imagine can be incredibly challenging in our modern world.
Right.
We're bombarded with external information and opinions constantly.
It does require a conscious effort to cultivate stillness and silence, to create space for that inner voice to kind of emerge.
Right.
Emerson suggests spending time in nature, engaging in contemplative practices, and simply paying attention to those subtle nudges we often ignore.
It's about slowing down, tuning in, and trusting that inner wisdom.
Exactly. And this leads to what might be Emerson's most radical suggestion.
Yep.
Seeking truth for its own sake.
Okay.
Not for personal gain, social approval, or to win an argument, but because the pursuit of understanding is intrinsically valuable.
It's about approaching knowledge with a sense of wonder and humility, recognizing that the more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know.
Precisely. It's about embracing lifelong learning, always being open to new perspectives, and recognizing that true understanding requires constant questioning and exploration.
This all resonates deeply, but I have to admit, putting it into practice feels daunting at times.
Right.
Emerson makes it sound so simple, so effortless.
Yeah.
How do we reconcile this beautiful philosophy with, like, the messiness of everyday life? How do we actually live in a way that honors this connection to the oversoul amidst the inevitable challenges and distractions we face?
That's the paradox, isn't it? The simplicity of Emerson's message can feel at odds with the complexity of our lives.
Yeah.
But I think that's where the true work begins, in that space between the ideal and the real. It's about striving to live in alignment with these principles, even when we fall short.
So it's not about perfection, but about intention, about constantly recalibrating, course-correcting, and remembering that the journey itself is the destination.
Exactly. The beauty's in the seeking, in the continual unfolding of ourselves and our understanding. And that journey, it isn't linear. There will be moments of profound connection and moments of doubt and confusion.
Right.
It's about embracing the full spectrum of human experience, the highs and the lows, as part of this ongoing dance with the oversoul. And remembering that we're not alone in this dance.
Yeah.
Emerson reminds us that we are all part of a great whole, connected by this invisible thread of the oversoul. And just as a single note contributes to the beauty of a symphony, each of us plays a vital role in the grand orchestra of existence.
It's a beautiful image, and it speaks to the interconnectedness at the heart of Emerson's philosophy. But if we're all connected by this invisible thread, if we're all part of this grand orchestra, what does that mean for our individual journeys? How do we reconcile this sense of unity with the very real experience of separateness we feel in our daily lives? That's the paradox, isn't it? We can feel so connected one minute and then, bam, utterly alone the next. How do we reconcile those two, those seemingly contradictory experiences, through this lens of the oversoul?
You know, Emerson actually acknowledges this tension, this kind of dance between unity and individuality.
Okay.
He suggests that recognizing the oversoul doesn't erase our individual identities, but it elevates them in a way.
Okay.
He writes, "In the sea of men, each man is an island." He's recognizing our unique perspectives and experiences.
Yeah.
But then he goes on to say that the time will come when these islands shall have been joined.
Mm.
It's in recognizing both our individuality and our interconnectedness that we really discover our fullest potential.
So it's not about like dissolving into some kind of formless unity. It's about recognizing that our individual journeys, even with all their complexities and contradictions,
Yeah.
that they actually contribute to the richness of the whole.
Exactly. Emerson challenges us to embrace the fullness of our individuality while also recognizing that our lives are completely intertwined with the lives of others.
Mm.
It's in that space between those two poles that we discover our truest selves and really make our unique contributions to the world.
You know, that makes me think of another passage from the Oversoul. Emerson writes, "The only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be."
And that feels, I don't know, it feels both empowering and a little daunting at the same time.
It is both. Emerson's reminding us that we have the agency to shape our own lives,
Right.
to make choices that align with our values and aspirations. But it's also a huge call to responsibility. You know,
Right.
if we're all connected, if our lives are all intertwined in this grand tapestry of existence, then our actions have these ripple effects that extend way beyond our immediate sphere. So it's not just about personal growth then, it's about recognizing that as we cultivate our connection to the Oversoul, as we step more fully into ourselves, we're also contributing to something much bigger.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful proposition, but it's a challenging one too. To live a life worthy of our highest selves, knowing that in doing so, we uplift not only ourselves, but everyone around us.
Yeah.
As Emerson so eloquently puts it, what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. And what lies within us, he argues, is that spark of the divine, that connection to the infinite and eternal Oversoul.
As we're wrapping up here, as we come to the close of our deep dive into Emerson's The Oversoul, I'm struck by how these ideas, even though they're centuries old, still feel so incredibly relevant to our lives today. They offer this framework for navigating our complex world, for finding meaning and purpose, and for recognizing the interconnectedness of all things.
And perhaps most importantly, Emerson reminds us that this is a journey. It's a process of continual discovery and growth. There's no final destination. There's no point at which we've fully grasped the nature of the Oversoul. It's in the seeking, the questioning, the continual striving to live in alignment with these principles that we really find true fulfillment.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us today, everyone, on this deep dive into the timeless wisdom of Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Absolutely.
We hope this exploration has sparked some new insights for you, inspired you to connect with the profound beauty and interconnectedness of life. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. It would be a great source of help to maintain and develop this channel and the correlated website. This book overview was presented to you by olbooksummary.com. Are you interested in more insights into personal development books or motivational and inspirational books? Please visit olbooksummary.com and you will find a library of the most helpful self-development and human character development books overviews. See you soon with the next books overview video.